Good morning. My name is Kenyon McDuffie, at-large council member and chair of the Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. Today is Wednesday, April 5th, 2023, and we're convening this hearing in a hybrid fashion, both via Zoom and from room 500 in the John A. Wilson building. It's being streamed live on the council's website. The time is 9:09 a.m. and I'm calling to order this budget oversight hearing of the committee. This is the committee's first budget oversight hearing for the fiscal year 2024 budget season. As this committee begins its budget oversight hearings for the 2024 budget season, we must acknowledge that we are in a much different financial outlook than we have been in the previous years, with the sunset of federal dollars that were coming in due to the pandemic and the lowered revenue projections for the district. We are looking at a leaner budget that we've been accustomed to recently. This means that tough decisions will be made in the coming weeks as the council reviews and makes changes to the mayor's proposed budget. The fiscal year 2024 proposed budget includes $10.6 billion in local funds and $19.7 billion in gross funds. That's a 1% decrease in local funds from 2023 and a 1.3% decrease in gross funds. Today, we will hear from the public and government witnesses representing the district's Public Service Commission, as well as the Office of People's Counsel, about how those entities propose to use these funds to provide meaningful program services and assistance to serve the residents of the District of Columbia. Government witnesses are going to have 7 minutes for opening statements, and any council members present will have 3 minutes to provide opening remarks. Testimony will be followed by 7-minute rounds for council members. Public witnesses will have 3 minutes. All public witnesses will have 3 minutes to provide testimony, and all participants should mute their microphones when they're not speaking. At this time, I'm going to call our first panel of public witnesses. Thanks. Ann DeBellis, Doug Siglin, Jim Doherty, Carol Spring, Nicole Rentz are the 5 public witnesses who signed up with the committee to testify. And while we are migrating them over as panelists, I just want to mention we may be having some challenges with our clock. We are no longer experiencing challenges with our clock, I'm told. So if you are providing witness testimony, you should be able to see the clock on your Zoom. And we're going to begin with Ann DeBellis. Good morning to you. You have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. Thank you for joining us.
Good day, Chairman McDuffie, committee members, and staff. My name is Ann DeBellis. I'm a resident of Ward 3. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have some questions that I would like for Chairman McDuffie to ask Chairman Thompson. The Office of Climate Action is now in place with an acting chief supported by an environmental economist, with 2 OCA positions remaining to be filled. Although this is an encouraging development, I'm concerned that the Public Service Commission is still moving far too slowly on climate matters. Question: what further expertise does the PSC need to access? Certain super emitters might not be safety hazards, but are a climate risk, given methane's potency as a greenhouse gas. Questions: does the PSC have enough staff capacity to track gas leaks from a climate standpoint in addition to a safety standpoint? Does the PSC's FY24 budget accommodate this? As areas of the district transition to full electrification, it is the responsibility of the gas utility, not the ratepayers, to cover the costs of pipe network decommissioning. And it is the task of the commissioners to inform Washington Gas that the company must set aside funds for retracting parts of the pipeline system. From my perspective, hesitancy in addressing a plan to decommission results from a lack of regulatory fortitude, not a lack of authority. Questions: Who on the PSC's engineering staff is qualified to oversee decommissioning parts of the methane distribution system during the coming years? Otherwise, what monies in the PSC's FY24 budget have been dedicated toward technical consulting to advise on this? The Department of Energy and Environment's strategic electrification study outlines a block scale approach to gas pipeline management for retirement. Commissioners must protect gas customers from the obligation to pay for wasteful, unneeded pipe replacement. Question: will the commissioners steer Washington Gas toward the vastly less costly alternative of repairing methane leaks rather than replacing pipes entirely where practicable? Through proactive regulatory structure, the PSC can prohibit Washington Gas from charging ratepayers potentially billions of dollars for future stranded infrastructure assets. Question: are economists on staff equipped to develop such a structure, or is more help needed? To repeat what has too often been asked for, the commissioners and staff must timely undertake phasing out the use of greenhouse gas producing fuels by means of an orderly schedule that ensures safety, equity, and affordability. It is critically important that the PSC's budgeting process include funding for adequate staffing, staff training, and consultant services toward this end. Thank you for your time and attention.
And thank you for your testimony this morning. We're going to turn next to Doug Siglin with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. Good morning to you. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you. It's a beautiful morning. I hope you got to enjoy it a little bit. I'm Doug Siglin. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. I'm going to speak about the PSC budget in general, but I want to set the context. Chairman, you and your colleagues on the council ought to be very proud that you have set some of the highest greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals in the country, perhaps the highest. You've set the codified goals now of a 60% reduction off 2006 by 2030, 70% reduction by 2035, and 85% reduction by 2040, and then carbon neutrality by 2045. In order to achieve those goals, which are going to be really hard, we've got to have all hands on deck. And I must say that I feel like we don't have all hands on deck to those goals yet. And the PSC is one place that may need to make more effort to get on deck. You asked me in the performance hearing on March 1st what I thought the most important thing would be for the PSC. And I said a comprehensive roadmap for trying to meet those goals. And we had a brief exchange about it, and I still continue to believe that. I don't see that comprehensive roadmap underway. Last month, on February 27th, a group of organizations, including Chesapeake Climate Action Network, sent the commission a long, detailed letter outlining several of the proceedings that were underway and how they seem to have gotten stalled or slowed down and are not moving forward with adequate pace. We didn't receive any response to that letter except for an acknowledgement from Commissioner Beverly, even though it was very detailed in all of its aspects. I have to believe that the commission has budget challenges in this area because it's really not moving forward on a comprehensive plan. And that was its own idea. It floated the notion of a comprehensive planning process when it opened formal case 1167, I believe it is. So I would just urge you today to ask Chairman Thompson, if you get a chance, is it a budget problem? What's the issue? Do they need to reallocate resources? Do they need to look for outside funding? Do they need to find a way to get these proceedings going again so that we can actually get a comprehensive roadmap? I tell you, if I were a commissioner and I was faced with a rate increase case that includes several climate aspects, or the Project Pipes case, which is asking for $671 some million to do pipe replacement, I would want a roadmap to help me decide those. So I hope, Chairman, that you'll ask Mr. Thompson questions about that. Thanks for your time.
And thank you for your time this morning. Next is Jim Doherty. Good morning to you. Begin your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Doherty. I live in Ward 6. I've been practicing environmental law in Washington for 45 years. I'm a member of the DC Commission on Climate Change and Resiliency, appointed by Chairman Mendelson. But today I'm speaking on my own behalf strictly. I'd like to echo the remarks of Ms. DeVise and Mr. Siglin. This is the time now to plan for the decommissioning of the gas system. We need to do this in part, as Mr. Siglin said, in order to reach the statutory goal of carbon zero by 2045. But I'll give you another reason. One is we're not going to be able to afford natural gas. Thanks to the vision of the council, new building construction with gas is outlawed in about 2 years. Maryland did the same thing. And what that means is gas as an energy source, and indeed, I think the future of the gas company is limited. They're done for, essentially. And this is underscored by a report that was released by the Maryland Office of People's Counsel in November. They hired an expert company and they forecasted what was going to happen over the next 25 years to gas, given these regulatory constraints. And what they said is that Washington Gas is going to see a sales decline of 50% in the next 9 years. And then in 9 years after that, it's going to decline again by 50%. By 2050, the gas sales will decline by 90%. The cost of gas to consumers is going to increase over that period by a factor of 8. And so what's going to happen, according to this report, and I'll attach a copy to my testimony when I submit it, is that once gas gets 3 or 4 or 5 times more expensive than it is now, well-to-do consumers, they'll swap out. They'll get rid of their gas stove and they'll put in electric induction, et cetera. It's the poor ratepayers who are going to be in the bind, and they're going to be stuck, and there's nothing they can do about it. So I think it's time for the commission. It's time for the council's already ahead of it, but the commission, I think, is lagging, and they need to plan an orderly transition, and it's going to be a real challenge. The time to start that is now. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. Our next public witness is Carol Spring. Good morning to you. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman McDuffie. Good morning, committee members and staff. Thank you for your thoughtful listening today. My name's Carol Spring. I'm a Ward 4 resident and a Washington Gas customer. I'm deeply concerned about Washington Gas' plan to spend $5 billion of ratepayers' money on a wasteful project that would lock us in to decades more of toxic fossil fuel infrastructure. This is a terrible use of residents' hard-earned money. Washington Gas must be directed by the PSC to fix the leaks now and start moving away from fracked gas. Why should ratepayers foot the bill for Washington Gas profits? We have to move to electrification now, as the council has already made a lot of moves towards that. As DC heats up, we can scarcely afford to invest in toxic methane infrastructure. It's not right for Washington Gas to demand that DC residents pay for their future stranded assets. They're a for-profit corporation that wants to keep maximizing profits on the backs of DC residents. But the PSC has the authority to stop them from making us pay for their stranded assets. Asthma rates among children and adults in DC are among the highest in the nation, according to the American Lung Association. We know that asthma and other respiratory diseases can be caused by and are exacerbated by methane leaks. And thousands of people die of asthma every year in the US. Why do we continue to normalize the presence of toxic gas in our homes, sickening our children and elders, and disproportionately affecting people of color? From both an economic and a public health perspective, it's time for the Council and the Public Service Commission to say no to Washington Gas and their demands and their so-called project pipes. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. Our next witness is Nicole Rentz. Good morning to you. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning. I'm here today on behalf of the Chesapeake Solar and Storage Association, or CHESA, which represents over 150 companies that finance, develop, and install solar and energy storage in the district, Maryland, Virginia, and Delaware. Rapid deployment of renewable distributed energy resources, or DERs, like solar and storage, is central to the district's climate and equity commitments, and the district's solar industry now supports roughly 1,100 jobs and has facilitated over $500 million in investment in district district infrastructure, saving thousands of residents and businesses money on the energy development process. Currently, the most significant barrier to increasing speed and scale of DER deployment in the district is the lengthy and unpredictable process of getting interconnection approval for solar systems from utility. CHESA has filed 3 reports over the past 18 months with the PSC detailing how the interconnection process has become increasingly extended, costly, and unpredictable. The Commission has not yet taken steps to address these delays. Interconnection delays may sound somewhat minor, but timely and reliable interconnection is really the whole ballgame when it comes to clean energy deployment. The ability to reliably interconnect makes or breaks renewable energy projects, and with them, renewable energy companies. Just a few canceled projects or exceeded financing timelines can greatly harm a small business, and compounding costs from delay can result in death by 1,000 cuts in addition to months of lost energy savings for district ratepayers. CHESA recommends that the committee urge the PSC to undertake efforts to make DER interconnection process more reliable, transparent, and timely in the coming year. This would include resolution of disputes about PSC rules as applied to specific projects. The PSC should also establish strong market mechanisms to allow full realization of DER value and support a strong competitive DER market, as this will maximize third-party capital investment and benefits for customers. Further, the committee can take action directly to help address a specific issue that has repeatedly delayed interconnection over the past year: the national shortage of distribution transformers. Transformer upgrades are required for 30 to 40% of community renewable energy systems, which are key to ensuring equity in the district's solar programs and make up most of the Solar for All program projects. A shortage of available transformers from the manufacturers that PEPCO works with has caused significant delays in interconnecting solar systems over the past year. And in some cases, this has resulted in projects sitting idle for months after they've been fully built, just waiting for a distribution transformer to be installed, as companies lose returns and customers lose energy savings each day the system isn't turned on. The committee could reduce these delays by adopting a provision in the Budget Support Act that directs PEPCO or the Commission to allow solar installers to procure their own transformers pursuant to PEPCO equipment specifications. Solar installers will be highly motivated to ensure that transformers are timely procured for their projects, and such a program would allow them to monitor shipping and communications with the manufacturers themselves. If desired, the program could be sunset in a year when the transformer shortage will have hopefully resolved. We believe better oversight and proactive measures to address interconnection delays can resolve many of the issues that solar installers and customers face and speed up the district's transition to a clean, distributed energy system that saves residents money. Thanks for your time and consideration of these recommendations.
Nicole, we had trouble hearing you here inside the chamber. I'm not sure if that's our feed or yours. I know that you are a veteran to council proceedings, and so if you haven't already sent in your testimony, we'd love to make sure that you do it for the record so we can incorporate it. I heard a good deal of what you testified to, but we obviously want to make sure it's all reflected in the record of the committee's budget oversight hearing.
Absolutely, I will.
And that for any of the witnesses who have not yet provided their written testimony, we would encourage you to do so. I want to go back to just asking an open-ended question of all the witnesses. I think, Ann Du Bois and Doug Siglin, I believe, both made reference to some aspect of the PSC's budget. And I want to sort of make sure that we are mindful that this is a budget oversight hearing in terms of the agency's resources, budget, FTEs. Do any of you all have concerns with the amount of resources that they have, that the Public Service Commission has, and whether or not it affects their ability to fulfill their mission? I understand some take issue with whether or not they're doing that. As was pointed out, many of you all, if not all of you, testified during performance oversight hearing, and I think testified to the performance of the PSC in areas where you think it needs to be stronger, particularly in areas of with respect to gas. But I wanted to give you an opportunity, in case you wanted to add anything else to the record, to speak specifically about the Public Service Commission's budget for FY 2024. Any concerns you have with the resources that the PSC has and its ability to perform the necessary functions. Anybody? Okay, I don't see any hands. Oh, do we? Okay. Mr. Boyce?
Thank you, Chairman McDuffie. I think it's a question of allocation. So, and I don't, I'm not privy to the PSC's budget in any detail, really. So that's why I'm asking the questions that I posed. In terms of consultant services particularly, I think there could be allocation where help is needed to look at decommissioning the pipeline system and possibly protecting ratepayers against stranded assets, those two in particular. Thank you very much for your attention to this.
You bet. And we got your questions in advance as well, that you sent via email, I believe, to the office. So thank you each for your testimony this morning. We're going to turn next to the government witnesses for Public Service Commission and Chairman Emil Thompson and anyone else on the team who plans to testify.
At this time, no, just myself.
Okay, I'm going to swear you in, Chairman Thompson. Before I do that, I probably should give some background for the public who might be viewing this. The Public Service Commission has a mission, which is to serve the public interest by ensuring that financially healthy utility companies provide safe, reliable, and quality utility service at reasonable rates for district consumers while fostering grid modernization, conservation of natural resources, preservation of environmental quality, and advancement of the district's climate policy goals. So if you don't mind raising your right hand, Chairman Thompson, so I can swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide before the Council of the District of Columbia and this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And good morning to you. You can proceed with your testimony.
Good morning to you as well, Chairman McDuffie. I'm Emil C. Thompson, Chairman of the Public Service Commission. I'm pleased to appear before this committee to provide testimony in support of the Mayor's fiscal year 2024 budget request for the Commission. For FY 2024, the Mayor has proposed an operating budget of $19,863,885 and 93.6 full-time equivalent positions. This represents an increase of 5.4% over the FY 2023 budget and the addition of 3 full-time positions. These new positions will be in the Office of Technical and Regulatory Analysis, an electrical engineer, and the Office of the Executive Director, a procurement specialist and an IT specialist. These new positions will support the Commission's growing demands around engineering related to emerging clean energy equipment advances, as well as ensuring the Commission has sound procurement and technology expertise to carry out its mission. The proposed FY 2024 budget includes no local funds, $19,268,885 in special purpose revenues, O-type funds, $581,000 in federal grants for pipeline safety and damage inspections, and $14,000 in private donations. Special purpose revenues remain the funding source for 97% of the Commission's budget. According to DC Code, this revenue comes from assessments levied on Pepco, Washington Gas, Verizon, and all competitive electric, natural gas, and telecommunications service providers licensed by the Commission. In addition, DC Code explicitly states that Public Service Commission agency funds shall be used exclusively by the Commission for its expenses. The Commission currently has 13 FTE full-time equivalent positions vacant, but each of these positions is being moved along expeditiously in the hiring process. In fact, 11 of these positions have already been posted for the closing date is passed. While we are being extremely proactive and strategic in our hiring, we also need to ensure that we maintain the highest standards for employment at the Commission. As you know, our staff consists almost entirely of attorneys, engineers, financial analysts, and economists. We compete for these specialists with other public service commissions, the federal government, and other regulated entities themselves. We use all available recruiting tools, including private recruiters, the resources of national and regional regulatory associations, industry job boards, and traditional social media outlets such as LinkedIn. Broadly, sorry. At our performance hearing last month, I highlighted for you the commission is guided by the district's aggressive clean energy commitments, including having 100% renewable electricity by 2032 and achieving carbon neutrality by 2045. For the rest of FY 2023 and FY 2024, these commitments will continue to serve as a North Star as we strive to maintain a safe, reliable, and affordable energy system. I want to take this opportunity to update you on a few of our efforts since our performance hearing took place. First, in the area of interconnection. Staff at the Commission continue to diligently process solar system applications in a high quality and timely manner. From January 2023 to March 27th, the first quarter of this calendar year, we have certified 575 new solar system applications for participation in the district's RPS program, including 7 new CREFs. These new systems encompass nearly 11 megawatts of new solar system capacity. If this level of growth continues over the balance of 2023, the district will be well positioned to meet or exceed its new RPS program target established under the Local Solar Expansion Act of 2022. We now have about 15,700 solar systems presently certified, including 308 CREFs. Next, the PowerPath DC pilot projects. The Commission established Pilot Projects Governance Board and is responsible for reviewing and recommending innovative pilot projects to modernize the energy delivery system. We have issued our first award notices in the community heat pump pilot project, which is intended to support the development of a large community heat pump system or systems that could replace existing fossil fuel space conditioning systems. Other projects under the Governance Board's purview are actively being worked on and are moving forward appropriately. In the area of energy infrastructure enhancements, the Commission continues to monitor progress on energy infrastructure upgrades in the district, including DC Plug and Pepco's Capital Grid project. We are following final construction work on the undergrounding of feeder 14900, which is currently expected to be energized by the end of June and will provide increased system resiliency for customers in Ward 4. We are also watching progress on Pepco's upgrade of the Harvard substation in Ward 1, which is currently expected to come online by late September this year and provide additional reliability for customers in Ward 1. Broadly speaking, our goals for FY23 and FY24 aim to further the progress the Commission is making in several areas, enhancing our key performance indicators. As discussed in our performance oversight hearing, the Commission is taking a hard look at our KPIs to ensure they align with the mission and the work of the Commission. We expect to present additional KPIs that are informed by a number of emerging areas, including the work done in FC 1167, the Climate Business Plans case. We also strive to maintain and cultivate a healthy workforce. The Commission intends to be deliberate with hiring so that it is targeted and our retention rates remain high. We also plan to enhance our onboarding process so that new employees are well acquainted with the Commission's mission, priorities, and goals. Then finally, last but certainly not least, supplier and workforce diversity. Supplier and workforce diversity continues to be a top priority for the Commission. In FY 2024, we intend to provide increased opportunities around diversity access, particularly as it relates to prospects for women and minority-owned businesses in the district. It is our hope that you agree with the Mayor's budget for the Commission, as it will help us carry out the mission of ensuring that utilities provide safe, reliable, and quality services at reasonable rates while advancing the district's climate policy commitments. Thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Chairman. We provided you all a number of budget-related questions prior to today's hearing. We appreciate you and your team providing us with the detailed responses. I don't have a lot of questions for you actually today, given how straightforward your budget is. I do have some questions I want to ask you, and I imagine we may have some follow-up just as the council and this committee in particular continues to do its work. We discussed some of the Commission's equity-related efforts during the performance oversight hearing, and regarding the agency budget development process. You touched on it briefly in your testimony, but I'd love to give you a little bit more time to expound on, this question about how the PSC involve internal and external stakeholders, including in particular communities of color who are consumers impacted by the work that you all do. So just talk a little bit about the work that you all are doing amongst your team in terms of how you all are engaging internal and external stakeholders. You heard 5 witnesses testify this morning, and some of them asked specific questions that they'd like the committee to pose. Others talked about what I think they say amounts to a lack of urgency by the commission on pursuing the district's clean energy goals. I want to give you a chance to respond to that, but I want you to speak first to the types of things that your team and you are doing to engage stakeholders, particularly in communities of color.
Yes, well, I'll begin by saying that first and foremost is our Office of Consumer Services. They are extremely diligent in participating in community events, and many of those events oftentimes are in communities of color, whether it's across the river or in Ward 5, Ward 4, or Ward 2 or Ward 1. And so that involves them going out to numerous community events, being active, having tables, sharing information about the services that the commission offers. One of the things that a lot of consumers don't realize that we specialize in is dispute resolution with our utility companies, especially when it comes to billing practices. And so we get the word out about that. We talk about customer assistance programs, especially during COVID. We were very active partnering with some of our sister agencies, OPC and DOEE, talking about Here to Help and funds that were made available by the government to help deal with bill assistance. The next level from that, I would say, is every time we have a rate case, we make sure that we have hearings, not just here in the commission which is downtown, but also we go out to the community. So this past month, I guess it was in February, during the Washington Gas rate case, we had public hearings in Ward 5 at Lamont Riggs Library, and as well as in Ward 7 at the library there. And I'll be very candid. We didn't have as much turnout as I would have liked, but there was turnout nonetheless. And we try and make every effort we can to not just ask that people come to us, but we go to them. On top of that, I've mentioned in the testimony our supplier and diversity hearing. This is in some ways aimed at a different category because we're at this point, we're looking at people who are trying to break into the field of with the utilities in terms of business opportunities. And so what we did last year was we had a hearing at DC Water where we invited the utilities to come in so that they could talk about their compliance with the voluntary MOU that they signed. This year, we seek to enhance that and also provide some type of session in which we're able to connect suppliers with the utilities and make that connection a little bit more firm. I would also note that—
Let me jump in just to ask a sort of follow-up. I know earlier in your response to my initial question, you talked about utility dispute resolution. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how PSC ensures that the utilities are addressing some of the existing inequities to the extent it falls within their ability to do so. I think about grant disbursement. You touched on contracting and procurement. So if you can hone in on that and talk a little bit about how the PSC pushes utilities in those areas.
Yeah, so certainly with respect to the billing space, one of the things that we have found is that there's a huge inequity when it comes to the energy burden. And so we have pushed each of our utilities to incorporate utility discount programs. And a lot of times these discount programs, if applied for, result in significant savings on someone's energy bill. I'm talking about almost 50% of the energy bill. And one of the things that we did during COVID was we increased the threshold for eligibility to 80% of the AMI income. As a result, when we had our year-end report on the utility discount programs, we saw that we had record participation let me say this. We had much greater participation than the previous years. I'm not sure if it was record over the entirety, but at least in the last few years, it was certainly much more increased participation, which means that more people are able to benefit from it. So that's on the financial side. I guess more on the environmental justice side, we're looking at each one of our proceedings to ensure that we are not just building infrastructure in people's neighborhoods that will cause blight, that will cause health issues. We're looking at different alternatives, non-wire alternatives, things that really will help to remedy past occurrences of environmental inequity. Last thing I would add is, we're certainly pushing the gas company to fix gas leaks throughout the district, and that certainly disproportionately affects minorities.
It certainly does, and this came up in some of the testimony from the public witnesses earlier today, as well as doing performance oversight. And so, does the Public Service Commission, in your opinion, have the resources it needs to be able to do that, to be able to push utilities to make sure that existing inequities in terms of utility infrastructure is not disproportionately impacting communities of color? It shouldn't be impacting anybody negatively, but we've seen historically disproportionate impacts on communities of color, communities that have received less investment, less resource. How do you respond to some of those criticisms?
I think that the commission certainly has the resources it needs, especially in this budget as proposed. We have a pipeline safety team that's certified by the federal government, PHMSA, and that has had a perfect score for over the past 5-6 years. In addition to that, they go out and do pipeline testing. We've also been very diligent in managing or over-regulating Washington Gas's pipeline inspection process. They, on a rolling basis, inspect all the pipes in DC over a 3-year period, different intervals. And so we monitor that, and we monitor what technologies they're using for that pipeline leak detection. It's certainly an issue. You have a city that has a very aging gas infrastructure, and we also have climate goals. And so there has to be a balance in terms of investment and replacement, as well as maintaining a safe system that's not going to cause explosions or even have leaks that then affect the residents of the District of Columbia.
So let me focus you in on the budget specifically. $19.8 million, 93.6 FTEs. You touched on it in your testimony earlier, but I want to get you to talk specifically about the additional FTEs and speak in detail about each one of the additional FTEs, what the role and function is going to be and the costs associated with each.
Yes. So the first FTE is an electrical engineer in our technical analysis group. And this electrical engineer is going to be very vital for us, as has been talked about extensively, as we look at the clean energy transition, as we look at our grid and assessing what it needs, what it doesn't need. This additional electrical engineer will help provide additional strength to evaluating some of the proposals that are proposed not only by the utilities, but also by the public. And so we're talking about the integration of DER, smart inverters, looking at hosting capacity issues, a whole number of things. And so this electrical engineer will help add additional capacity to the commission for that. The next two are in the Office of the Executive Director. The first one is a procurement specialist. The commission has a greater and greater outsized role in terms of contracting so that we can meet our mandate. This is some of what was talked about by previous panelists in terms of bringing in additional experts to look at various cases. And so because we're an independent agency and we have our own contracting authority, we need this additional capacity to make sure that we're not only handling contracts internally, but also, I mentioned the governance board and the contract that went out for that. That was a $5 million contract, making sure that we have the proper people in place to ensure that we are contracting in a proper way. And then last, as an IT specialist, as we navigate this hybrid space, as we again have more demands and seek to meet our mandate, we need additional people on the team who can meet the needs of our workforce so that we can complete our job in a timely manner. The IT specialist also provides support to our extensive and e-docket, which allows people to go online and view pleadings in every case. And so this is something that not only helps internally, but helps with transparency and helps the public with access.
Okay. How many vacant FTE positions are there currently at the Public Service Commission?
Currently, we have 13 vacant positions. 11 of those have been posted, and that posting has since closed. We've been moving very aggressively to fill those, and we can certainly provide an updated vacancy report in a month to show the progress that we've made.
And it might be useful for the benefit of our viewers who may not understand how the Public Service Commission's budget functions, particularly how special purpose revenue funds are handled. But what happens to those accrued vacancy savings at the end of the fiscal year?
Yes, because our revenue comes from a special assessment as opposed to the general fund like most agencies, we're required that if we don't spend 95% of our budget, that remaining 5% is actually refunded back to the utilities and competitive suppliers that we have assessed. And so we have a carryover from last year that we have to refund to the suppliers this year. Our aim this year is to spend enough of our budget such that we do not have this fund balance. And currently I think at the halfway point of our fiscal year, we were right at 50% spending. And so we don't expect to have that fund balance this year.
And what's the current vacancy savings rate?
I know the vacancy savings rate is about 5.4%. I'd have to get you that exact dollar. I know a large amount of that money is going to already be obligated. We are in the midst of negotiations with one of our unions, and so we expect some of the monies from that vacancy savings to go to there. We have some expected hiring that I mentioned before that we'll do before the end of the year. And then we have a few other step increases that we are expecting, and some additional employee incentives that we have planned for our employees.
And speaking of increases, I see an increase in personnel costs. And we talked about personnel costs, but also for equipment and equipment rentals. There's about a 16% increase there. What's the reason for the increase in equipment related expenses?
Yes, that's more of a policy accounting issue. With the switch over to diffs, what's happened is the way that some of our money that we interagency to Octo has changed in terms of what bracket it's under. And so what you'll really see is if you look at line item under telecommunications 31, it's almost a balancing of the subgroup 31 and subgroup, I believe it's subgroup 70. And so it's really more of a moving around of funds as opposed to an actual increase, but that has to do with the new diff system.
Okay. And how far along are you with the new diff system is up and running?
Yes.
Okay. And how much is the full budget for that system? You have already expended everything associated with putting the system in place. Right now, it's just what's going over to Octo?
Correct. So the diff system, that's what the CFO's office is now using in terms of the financial software. And so that's a citywide enterprise system. And so when I mentioned that it's really an accounting, it's the way diff system lists the money. So it's not for any particular system. It's just for how diff breaks down the spending in each category.
Got it. You mentioned telecommunications earlier, and maybe this is where the increase appears elsewhere. I think you mentioned it might be tied together, but let me ask the question anyway. I see a drop in the area of telecommunications and for supplies and materials. If you could talk about what's driving those decreases. I think it's like a 51.9% decrease in telecommunications and 45.9% for supplies and materials.
Right. And so the telecommunications drop is essentially balanced out by that equipment rental increases. And then with respect to supplies and materials, that decrease is really to align with agency spending needs. We found that with teleworking and increased hybrid nature, a traditional line item for supply needs is just decreased. And so this is better to align with agency spending.
Okay, and then looking at attachment 4 of PSC's common budget question responses, I don't know if you have it handy, but the commission has reprogrammed funds within the agency 3 times during FY 2022 and 2023 to date. And for each of these, at least a portion of the funds were available to be reprogrammed due to salary lapse and related fringe benefits from FTE positions that remained vacant during the fiscal year. If you could talk a little bit about how those funds were used.
Yeah, so last year, the majority of those funds were used in preparation for in completion of the renovations here at the PSC. We had some long-standing renovations that were delayed by COVID and supply chain issues. And so the majority of the funds were used for that. The remaining amount of those, you just give me one brief moment here. Sorry. I had that right here in front of me. I can provide you that additional information. I had it right here in front of me, but I can't seem to find the right tab. Sorry, thank you. Here we go. Okay. There was also some additional money that was used for the PSC Clean Energy Summit, as well as the CBE fair that I talked about in terms of the diversity supplier hearing. And so that was where the majority of the money went to.
Okay, and speaking of CBEs, just remind me again, what's your CBE spend for FY 2023 and where are you to date?
So for FY 2023, our goal is $1,170,000. And currently we're right at about $780,000 in terms of SBE expenditures. We met the goal of the past 2 years. We certainly expect to meet it this year. I would also note that a lot of our CBE spending happens towards the end of the fiscal year. So the fact that we are 75% to the goal already is a great sign.
Okay. I am not going to ask any additional questions at this time. Is there anything else you want to ask on the record before we transition to the Office of People's Counsel?
No, I would just thank you once again for your consideration, and we hope that we receive the budget as proposed by the mayor.
And thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your team putting it together. If we have any follow-up, we'll make sure that we are in contact with your office. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from the Office of People's Counsel, or OPC. The Office of the People's Counsel is an independent agency of the District of Columbia government. The mission of the OPC is to advocate for the provision of safe and reliable quality utility services and equitable treatment at rates that are just, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. The office assists consumers in disputes with providers and delivers technical assistance, education, and outreach to consumers, ratepayers, community groups, and associations. OPC also provides legislative analysis and information to the council on matters relating to utilities. OPC's proposed fiscal year 2024 operating budget is approximately $12.5 million, which is a 2.6% increase from its fiscal year 2023 approved operating budget. The proposed budget includes 56.4 FTEs, which is the same number as the fiscal year 2023 approved budget. With that, I'm going to call up the public witnesses for this agency, and each witness is going to have 3 minutes to provide oral testimony. We're going to begin with Alice Walker. Good morning to you. We really appreciate you joining the committee this morning to provide testimony. Begin your testimony.
I can actually unmute you right now. You're only hearing yourself right now in the hearing room, but when it's time to speak, you just have to press this, then your audio will go through. So when
Okay.
it goes green, you're live.
Okay, so I have to do that.
Yeah. Is it easier for you if I,
We can hear you all, and it is Alice Walker's opportunity to provide testimony. I'm not sure if anybody's speaking now, but we cannot hear you. Your audio is not coming through at present.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, there you go. Hi, Chairman McDuffie. On behalf of the Concerned Woodridge Seniors, CWS, I'd like to testify in support of the Office of the People's Counsel, Sonja Fry, and her staff to fully fund all of their initiatives and needs in the 2024 budget, especially outreach efforts to minority communities. CWS is a grassroots group formed after receiving information from Verizon, notifying us of the intent to
so the only thing you have to
retire.
do is start video and push.
Hello?
I'll be over here if you have issues.
Whoever's talking, it sounds like that you are coming through and interrupting Alice Walker's testimony. So we're gonna ask the staff to pause the clock to see Alice Walker has the full 3 minutes. We apologize for that. Alice, if you want to continue your testimony.
Yes, and yes. I forgot where I stopped.
You can take your time, you can find the place, and we are here to listen to you, so take your time.
Okay, thank you. The information that was received was confusing, and conversations with Verizon representatives frequently did not provide clear answers. CWS preferred to keep our copper wired lines. Before making a decision, we needed to understand the conversion from a technical point of view and learn about options to keep our copper wire lines. CWS reached out to OPC, aware of its exceptional track record as advocates for citizens. We found that the ANCs and other community members from different wards had also reached out to OPC with the same concerns. OPC took the lead, organized a Zoom discussion with impacted community members, the Public Service Commission, and Verizon. This revealed the conversion had already taken place in Ward 8, a historically underserved community. The same is happening in the Ward 5 neighborhood of Woodridge. It's widely known that Ward 5 has the highest population of seniors in DC. Many of us rely on landlines and consider them a lifeline. Also, there was no public forum that provided information, unbiased opinions, or outreach materials on the conversion that address potential impacts and risk to the livelihood, safety, and finances of seniors and the disabled or physically challenged. CWS recommended OPC, Verizon, and PSC, and PSC agreed to develop educational and outreach materials on these issues, also to distribute them on local cable channels, in public libraries, to ANCs, etc. They all have started the work. CWS encouraged the city council to ensure OPC has money in the budget and FTEs to continue to develop outreach materials to address and support the needs of consumers and stay on top of the Verizon conversion. In closing, this effort will benefit customers, seniors, and the disabled that are not yet slated to switch. Meanwhile, it appears too late for many seniors in Ward 8 and Ward 5 since they were required to switch to Fios or struggle to find another provider. I thank you for the opportunity to testify.
And I thank you for taking the time to provide really valuable testimony this morning. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, and I appreciate your continued service to the Woodridge community, Ward 5 more broadly. So thank you for your testimony, Alice Walker. We're going to turn next to Joy Jones. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman. Thank you. I just want to say my experience with OPC has been nothing short of excellence. The staff have been efficient, professional, as it is related to our agency workers as well as our consumers. I want to let you know that I'm the Director of Engagement of Housing and Consumer Engagement of Mental Health Agencies in Washington, D.C. I would like to also add that OPC is a small company, as I can see, has a small staff, and they still manage to take care of their extensive responsibilities while also making significant contributions in protecting our consumers of the district, as well as their timely response to the district residents and the concerns about services they can receive related to their utility bills. I have found the staff at OPC to display a commendable level of knowledge, experience about with their energy and enthusiasm as it relates to their mission and devotion to serving the public interest. As we know, many of the district residents face challenges with maintaining their utility bills as some are experiencing paying utility bills for the first time. OPC has been robust through consumer advocacy and their consumer division by educating and guiding our consumers on how to read their utility bills, teaching consumers how to understand the choice of the third-party suppliers involving their energy efficient measures that can be used to reduce their bills. With the myriad of issues and changes occurring in the utility world, rate increases, competitive suppliers, energy efficiencies, and sustainability, while also addressing the effects of climate change, OPC has continued to play a major role in ensuring that our utility rates remain affordable for district consumers and the residents are able to understand the changes effects and the role they will play in layman terms. In closing, I would like to ask that the council continue to fund OPC at the level of its budget. Thank you so much for allowing me to go on record.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. We're going to go next to Lawrence Means. And I don't know if any of the witnesses have the ability to turn on their video. For some reason, we're only hearing audio from this panel. Oh, good morning.
So I'll be the first.
And welcome to you. You can begin your testimony. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I would like to make my address that's not as political as the others may be, but boots on the ground testimony. I actually had a great pleasure to offer this testimony regarding a great experience for my organization, Sunflower House in Marigold Place, where we had with the management and staff of the Office of the People's Counsel. As president of Sunflower House and Marigold Place, I am honored to share with you a positive experience working with OPC and their commitment to supporting organizations like ours. The OPC has been an invaluable resource in terms of their professional assistance with public utilities, PEPCO, Washington Gas, and DC Water. They provided us with timely information and advice on how to navigate the complicated procedures of these essential services. Furthermore, I believe they went above and beyond to ensure that we would not experience the pending immediate service interruption we were facing, and they intervened immediately on behalf to prevent that from happening. What's essential to know and understand about that, we house people, individuals and families with terminal illnesses, and disconnection would have been devastating. Even not only devastating, but even it could be terminal with some of the people that we house. In addition to their immediate counsel and intervention, OPC also advised us on organizations that could provide additional services. They proved on several levels, every level that I spoke with someone, that they are committed to making sure that we as a nonprofit community-based organization have access to all the resources available to us. Their efforts are indicative of their dedication to assuring that our residents remain safe and secure during this recent emergency. The level of professionalism and expertise demonstrated by the OPC management and staff is exceptional. Their commitment to our organization's mission and the larger community is commendable. We are grateful for their support and recommend that they continue to work for persons like ourselves in the future. Now, in conclusion, I highly recommend the Office of People Counsel, the Office of the People's Counsel, to any organization or individual seeking assistance with public utilities in the District of Columbia. I highly recommend them. When we were at our critical need, they stepped in and they fought for us on behalf with the public utilities. We have them. Thank you very much. God bless.
And thank you very much for your testimony this morning. I want to turn to our fourth and final public witness, Deborah Holmes. Good morning to you. Thanks for being here this morning. You can begin your testimony. You're actually still muted if you want to.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Chairman and council members. I am a member of the Concerned Woodard Seniors, and I will appreciate the fact that you allowed me to testify this morning. DC Ward 5 residents greatly appreciated OPC facilitating a Zoom meeting in January with Verizon after hearing seniors from Ward 5 concerns about the transition from copper wires to fiber optic telephone services. It was the only coordinated meeting we had with Verizon on the subject. Without OPC, we would not have had or never received any information on the retirement of copper lines and the rollout of the fiber optics. It was unfortunate that there was not any planning or consideration for communication with seniors who are not connected with the internet. DC residents need assistance from OPC with communication and outreach for ongoing and future infrastructure changes that may impact their homes and daily lives. Imagine getting a phone call in early October from a neighbor asking if I had received a letter losing our copper telephone lines. I had not received a letter. I finally received a letter in November. Immediately after that, I reached out to family and friends across the city and in Maryland and Virginia to see if they had received letters. No one had knowledge of letters. Upper Northwest friends and associates informed me that it was illegal for the elimination of copper lines in the District of Columbia. It happened. I got copies of the letters and provided them to people across the city and my friends. I started researching for communication on the transition. My major concern was, what changes do I have to make? On February 13, 2023, at 7:30 a.m., I picked up my house phone to make a call. My phone was disabled or cut off. This was just after a Zoom call with Verizon in January. I was informed by Verizon recording that I could only call 911 and Verizon, basically to make an appointment to install Fios, the new fiber optics telephone service. I called that day and scheduled the installation. 1 hour Later, my phone service was restored. That easy, just get files without reviewing terms and conditions, researching and analysis on other options and comparison between providers and cost. Just for example, updating my security system, which is now on a landline, will have to be changed. That change will cost me from $400 to $800 and additional monthly calls. OPC needs additional funding to continue to advocate for us with telephone, gas, electricity, and water providers and services. Technology and science is always changing, and we need OPC at the table for planning and implementation and transitioning in these areas for the District of Columbia, and specifically in working with seniors. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I want to thank each of you for your testimony this morning. Let me ask Deborah Holmes, Alice Walker, in your experience with Verizon, how did you come to learn about the Office of People's Counsel and begin to communicate with them about your challenges?
I've worked with People's Counsel over the years, at least 10, 15 years on different issues, and I've testified for them before in reference to increased rates of utilities. So I've known about the People's Counsel for about maybe 15 years.
Okay. Deborah Holmes?
I learned about People's Counsel through Alice, about their primary mission. And when we ran up against a brick wall and working with AARP and other affiliates that we knew, and that's where they turned us to, was the Office of People's Counsel. This is my first time in working with them.
Okay. All right, and you have been satisfied with the response from the Office of People's Counsel and the way that they've been able to assist?
Yes, I have. I just wish, and I'm a former IT professional myself, and I understand how successful transitions and impact on citizens can make them part of the process and have a more successful transition where they're not afraid and they don't know how they're going to transition to the new technologies and science.
Okay. And Joy Jones, you were already aware of the Public Service Commission. How'd you come to interact with the agency and seek their assistance?
Washington Hospital Center, one of our clients, our consumers, was in Washington Hospital Center. Actually, her son, he was on a respirator, and she called me and told me that her electric was turned off, and the social service worker there actually called as well and asked how could I help her. So we got her signed up because she said that the mother was experiencing a lot of depression. And speaking with her, she told me about OPC. And I gave OPC a call, and Miss Linda Jefferson was like on it. I mean, her electric was back on within 2 days before her son returning home, which was really good. And I liked the way that she really talked to me and educated me about Pepco and about gas. I really liked that. And I was like, wow, you have a lot of passion. So I have been working with them ever since. It's been about a year now, and they have actually, Mr. Chairman, helped over 45 of our consumers. That is like really big, and getting their electric and gas and water, actually water paid, which has been a struggle for our agency for the last 4 or 5 years, and getting just water bills paid at enormous amount, big amounts. So that's how I met them, and have been working with them ever since. They have been really great. I'm grateful to them, and they've been really helpful.
Thank you for that. And Lawrence Means, were you familiar with the OPC before you needed them, the assistance of the agency, the way that you described it just now? Did you already know about the work that they were doing previously?
No, I did not. And I was referred to them from a gentleman that I met at a conference, a gentleman, Gerald Barnes, sometime. He's apparently an advocate there in DC, and he advised me to reach out to them, and they helped to solve our problems. And something that I didn't mention is that we are a nonprofit organization, a HUD-based funded program.
Okay. I appreciate that each of you have taken the time out of your days to provide testimony before the Committee on Business and Economic Development. It's very valuable to the work that we do here, particularly as we try to craft our budget here at the council during some really austere financial times. So thank you for providing that testimony.
Chairman McDuffie, can I add a few things?
You absolutely may.
I also wanted to share that on my street, we could smell gas. And we had the gas company come out 4 or 5 times and they could not, they said, yeah, you have a gas leak, but don't worry about it. And I reached out to OPC and told them that, that we could smell the gas, but we couldn't get a good answer or any real help from Washington Gas. Well, before I know it, there appeared in this nice white car some executive from Washington Gas who took the time to test the area, to test the street, and found out there indeed was, it was a slow gas leak, but it was a gas leak. And within a few days, the truck showed up and they started to, they dug into the ground and they started to take care of that gas leak. And that only happened, that elevated because I reached out to OPC. And also back in the early 90s, when we were looking at the trash transfer station issues in Washington, I reached out to OPC for just information and advice on how to reach out and to advocate for the city to take a closer look at the trash transfer stations and the negative impact it was having on the community over in Brentwood. So they've been very helpful throughout the years. I wanted to make sure that that's part of the record.
Well, it certainly will be included as part of the record, and we appreciate you making sure that you provide that information to the committee. And obviously, the issues described are extraordinarily serious around Washington Gas. I'm glad you got the response that you got, and we appreciate your championing the cause for the residents in your community for that, as well as with the trash transfer station. I know you've been really a stalwart in the community in advocating against the issues around environmental injustice associated with the trash transfer station. And we worked really closely with you over the years.
Yes.
Able to get the eminent domain. We know it's still in court, but we're hopeful to see that come to a conclusion soon. So thank you, and thank you for the rest of the witnesses as well. You all enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to call our government witness, Sandra Matavu-Fry, the People's Counsel, to testify. As you know, it's now part of the committee that we swear in all government witnesses who appear before it. So if you could raise your right hand this morning.
You see.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony that you're about to provide before the Council of the District of Columbia in this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, and good morning to you. You can provide your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman McDuffie, staff, and district residents. I am People's Counsel Sandra Matavu-Fry. Joining me today are members of my management team and our agency fiscal officer, Ms. Gurmeet Scoggins. Ms. Scoggins is available to answer any technical questions. Thank you for the opportunity to present OPC's fiscal year 2024 budget. I also thank Mayor Bowser for including in her omnibus budget funding OPC needs to address the mandate we were given by the DC Water Consumer Protection Amendment Act of 2018. The law requires OPC to conduct community education and outreach, resolve water service complaints, and comment on DC Water proceedings on behalf of DC Water consumers. I commit to ensuring that we steward our funds responsibly and transparently pursuant to our statutory mandate and mission. The FY24 budget proposed by the office comes at a time when district government is duly concerned about the shortfall in district revenues and its potential impact on the ability to provide the level of services our citizens need. OPC wholeheartedly shares this concern. Our budget reflects the measures we are taking to exercise fiscal prudence and accountability with each ratepayer dollar entrusted to us. OPC's FY24 proposed gross budget is $12.6 million, which represents a 2.6% increase over our FY23 approved budget. This year's budget includes 56.4 FTEs, which is no change from last year's budget, and we are not requesting new positions. The slight increase in our budget is necessary to fund mandatory salary and benefit increases. OPC's special purpose revenue funds account for $11.5 million, which represents a 2.7% increase. An additional $1,026,000 is for our local budget, which is an increase of 1.3% over our FY23 budget. The combined PS budget for FY24 is $8.6 million. The combined NPS budget is $3.9 million. I will discuss OPC's local budget and special purpose revenue budget separately. The local budget supports the operations of our Water Services Division, as established by Mayor Bowser and the Council in 2018. Unlike consumers of the three regulated utilities, Pepco, Washington Gas, and Verizon, prior to 2018, DC Water consumers did not have an independent advocate representing their interests. OPC's responsibilities now are similar to the work we perform with regard to the incumbent utilities regulated by the Public Service Commission. However, a major challenge for the office over the last 3 years has been ensuring that we have sufficient funding to meet the escalating growth of consumers seeking our assistance. Fortunately for FY23, the office requested and received $308,000 for 3 FTEs, 2 consumer complaints specialists and a program support specialist. Unquestionably, the new WSD staff is an extremely productive addition to our water services team, allowing us to respond faster and follow up quickly to our clients. However, complaints continue to increase. For example, at the close of FY22, complaints were trending upward. The upward tick continues in FY23. And as we look forward to FY24, OPC's local budget continues to present challenges. In addition to the increase in complaints, another area of ongoing concern is our ability to hire expert and legal consultants to review and analyze the complex and technical engineering and accounting data that DC Water relies upon to support its operations. Going to the Special Purpose Revenue Budget, SPR, like OPC has also exercised fiscal discipline and restraint regarding its SPR budget. The $11,568,000 and 48.4 FTEs constitute the bulk of OPC's total gross budget. As I discussed during my FY23 oversight hearing, we are currently litigating a Washington Gas $53 million rate case, and Pepco has already indicated it will file its next rate case in April. The last date we heard was April 13th, so mid-April. The rate cases, of course, include the price that consumers will pay for energy should the commission grant the utilities requests, and it calls into question the affordability issues. However, other important cases are pending before the commission, and they include grid modernization, public safety such as gas leak detection, energy reliability, and of course, climate change. As a result, our in-house attorneys are extremely busy. However, on the other side of the suite, the demand for assistance from our consumer services staff working on energy, telephone, and water service consumer complaints is growing unpredictably. While the need to provide equitable and sustainable service is constant. Exacerbating matters in this post-pandemic period is that the public safety net is far more limited, as programs that provided millions of dollars in financial assistance to consumers is ending. OPC is taking a proactive approach to the problem, so that in addition to tightening our belt, we are aggressively negotiating with the utilities on behalf of consumers, identifying charitable givers, and considering other regulatory options, such as expanding utility discount and arrearage management programs. OPC is striving to effectuate our commitment to support and promote the district's goals. As always, OPC will utilize all available source resources to mitigate dire consequences to district consumers to the very best of its ability. I also wanted to update you on the status of our office relocation. Our new address is at 655 15th Street Northwest. We are fortunate in that we have been able to increase our space, but we've also reduced the rent, and equally important, we are very close to the PSC. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. Ms. Scoggins and I are available for questions.
Thank you for your testimony, Madam People's Counsel. I have just a few questions for you this morning. You listened to the testimony of the four public witnesses, as you always listen to testimony during oversight hearings, and you heard positive feedback from those residents, and I'm sure you hear from others about many of your public information efforts and the way that you all engage. Could you speak to how your consumer education outreach and technical assistance programs have specifically helped to address racial or economic inequity in the district, and any other insights you'd like to share about that work on behalf of consumers?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have been very active in that area, particularly with respect to assisting minorities, racial minorities, and disadvantaged consumers. As a result of our new database, as I mentioned at our oversight hearing, we are now able to pinpoint those areas with more specificity. And so what we do is that we actually go to those, once we identify those communities, we go to those communities targeting information, education, and giving them access to various programs. You heard the conversation regarding the Verizon copper wire situation. That was an example of how we listen to what consumers have to say and then take direct action. It's not enough just to hear or to be aware of, but to actually go out and engage the community and engage the community, educate and inform the community, and give them a sense of what their options are. I mean, that is our basic strategy in terms of dealing with or addressing racial equity, as well as serving disadvantaged communities.
And, looking at your proposed, the budget proposed by the mayor for OPC for fiscal year 2024, as you mentioned, is a little more than $12.5 million. And the bulk of the operating budget is funded through special purpose revenue funds.
That's correct.
Can you speak specifically a little bit more detailed in your testimony about how those additional funds are going to be allocated?
Yes.
And I'll note while you're looking that you have the same amount of proposed FTEs for FY '24 as you do in the current fiscal year of FY '23.
Yes. You specifically want to know how we will fund, what we will fund, and
Yep, but specifically what the increase is going to be allocated to do within the agency.
I'm going to ask Gurmeet to address that question specifically. Gurmeet, can you do that?
And before you do that, I'd like to swear you in. So whenever you're ready and appear on your video, I'd like to be able to swear you in. Okay, if you want to unmute and raise your right hand, I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony that you're about to provide before the council of the District of Columbia and this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, and you can provide the answer. And just state your name for the record. Thanks.
I'm Gurmeet Scoggins, Agency Fiscal Officer for the Office of the People's Council. In regards to your question to Ms. Fry, I understand that the question is how the additional funds will be allocated. Am I correct?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. The agency budget consists of local funds and the special purpose revenue. Special purpose revenue represents 97% of the total budget and majority of the increase in the special purpose revenue. In the local budget, to start with that, there is an increase of only $13,000 when the budget request is $1,025,000. And that increase is only to cover the fringe benefit of the staff that is going to be budgeted for the 2024. For the special purpose revenue also includes a funding for within grade and salary adjustments that we have brought forward. As you know, there were salary adjustment mandated last year, and that are being brought forward as a base salaries of the staff. That's why there are no increased positions, but we have increase in the budget because we are covering the mandated salary adjustments. So that's what the increase is basically for.
Okay, and what, just how much is that aspect of the increase?
For the increase, what we covering in this total $301,000 that you can probably see on table 2, the total increase, the NPS increase only $131,000, and the majority of the increase in personal services. So the personal services will increase the mandated salary adjustments and within grade increases.
Okay, and just while I have you, what's the total amount of the local funds portion of the OPC's budget?
OPC budget increases only $13,000.
No, what's the total amount? Not the increase, the total amount.
Total amount of request is $1,026,000.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Don't have just a couple more questions to go. In your performance oversight hearing responses, you indicated that in the fiscal year 2024 budget, OPC requested an additional $100,000 in the non-personal services base budget to support contractual support for outside legal and technical support related to DC water oversight.
That's correct.
Okay, and what does that mean for, is that still in your budget as you had articulated on performance, and what does that mean for the consumer protection work that you all are doing, and I think residents are become used to seeing you all do in terms of DC Water?
Yes. We did not receive the $100,000 that was requested as an enhancement, I believe. But what happened, it's really, our budget is, there's basically an offset because we did get a $40,000 credit for the one-time amount, the one-time credit that was restored. And the council, the mayor waived, not the mayor, the budget office waived the 2.6% increase or reduction that most of the agencies were required to implement. So the total of those two were approximately $66,000. So for us, that was very close to what we initially asked for, and we'll be using those funds to do some of the things that we would have done with the $100,000.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
Gurmit, you can fill in if there is anything that I left out.
How many vacancies does OPC currently have?
We have 8 vacancies.
Okay. And I noticed that 2 of your senior positions for Assistant People's Counsel are currently vacant. One vacancy is relatively new since the end of last calendar year, but the other one has been vacant since April 2021. So what's the plan for those vacancies?
Well, there's good news, hopefully. We have interviewed and selected a candidate for the Assistant People's Counsel, the Senior Assistant People's Counsel. He has accepted our offer verbally, and we are now in the process of vetting his application, going through a security check. And we are extremely hopeful and confident that he will accept the position and start working in May of this year. With respect to the management position that was recently vacated, we have put out a vacancy announcement, and we are beginning the process of looking for a replacement. So hopefully we'll be fortunate and find someone as soon as possible, because that is a critical position for the office.
I appreciate the update. What's OPC's vacancy savings rate to date for FY 2023?
1 second. I believe it is, if you know it quicker than, if you can tell them quicker than I can, Gurmeet, please go ahead.
Yes, for the People's Counsel, the vacancy or savings or the salary lapse through September 30th, we projected to be $549,000, but the agency has plans to use some of that balance. As Ms. Fry indicated, that the agency relocated from one location to, I know they were at 1133 and now they are at 655 50th Street. So there are a lot of things that agencies still need to do. They're like cabling and IT work and furniture and a lot of things. So they have that plan for the money, but the total salary lapse so far, we are projecting to be $549,000.
Got it. Thank you.
And Ms. Goggins is correct. So we have relocated, and there are a number of things that need to be done. Some construction. We're especially focusing on the AV upgrade to make certain that we have the ability to broadcast, to use some of the things that we had been doing at our previous location that, because of the configuration, are not where we would like them to be. So a lot of that will go to those kinds of changes, as well as expanding outreach and communications and education as well.
Talk about the reprogramming that occurred during fiscal year 2022. What was the amount and what was it used to do?
For me,
Yes, for the reprogramming, last year, the OPC processed only one reprogramming, which was for $248,000. And the purpose of the reprogrammed funds were to use some of the funding for the Washington gas rate case last year. We did not have enough money in the current budget line to address all the needs for the contractual services and legal contracts. And the rest of the money was used to prepare for the relocation of the agency at that time. And there was a citywide event held, which was called Citywide Climate Event. So the agency participated in that. So this money was used for all those three events.
Have you all reprogrammed any funds in the current fiscal year?
We have not.
Any plans to do so?
We are,
Sorry.
I mean, that is something that we will take into consideration again, for some of the things that we want to do, particularly I guess Ms. Scoggins mentioned, we are having an upcoming conference, and that's we're incurring expenses. But we would like to do more of that type of outreach. One of the things that the public witnesses testified to was the value of OPC being able to really come out and do and to make certain that they have access to internet and technology. And we will use that money to facilitate any access to facilitate that type of outreach. So with conferences, we're going to do more of those. We would like to do webinars as well as, the podcast, just expanding the communication and making certain that the community is engaged and involved.
Okay, thank you for that. My final question has to do with CBE. If you could talk about what your CBE spend goal is for fiscal year 2023.
1 second.
And what the spend is to date.
What I can say is that we have met our SBE goal for 2023. We've exceeded it actually. It is 114. And
is that $114,000?
No, 114% over the goal, which I believe, I'm looking for my papers.
So you've already exceeded the goal for this current fiscal year?
For FY 22.
Yeah, my question was about the current fiscal year.
Where are we?
What is the current goal for fiscal year 2023, and where are you in terms of the spend to date?
Okay. One second. Okay. The SPE, the FY 23 SPE goal to date is $830,000, $830,575. We have not, I believe, we are on target to meet that goal, but we have not made an assessment or a calculation of how far we are. However, we have increased the number of minority vendors that we're using. And for example, the conference that we're holding is a minority vendor. So we anticipate that we will meet or exceed that goal.
Okay. Got it. I appreciate the update. I don't have any additional questions for you at this time. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the record?
No, I'm, not at this time. I think that we've covered we've covered everything that you asked for and that we need, that I wanted to say. We will definitely use the funds prudently and make certain that consumers get the most for their buck.
Okay, and with that, I want to thank you for your testimony. I want to thank Chairman Thompson before you, and I especially want to thank all of our public witnesses who took the time to provide testimony to the committee today. This marks the end of today's budget oversight hearing. The committee will convene again this Friday, April 7th, 2023 at 9 a.m. for its second budget oversight hearing on the Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking, as well as the Department of Small and Local Business Development. Members of the public have until 5 p.m. today to register to testify. The time is now 10:48 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned. My mic hot, so it looks like I'm actually doing some work.